The grinding sound of my welder echoed through the still morning air, sparks flying like fireflies in a storm. And as the final seam of molten steel sealed shut, I stepped back and took one last look at what I'd done. Karen's luxury SUV was now an art piece, entombed inside my workshop like a relic of arrogance. I didn't feel guilt. Not yet. That would come later. But right then, I felt peace. It all started 3 months earlier when I moved into Pineview Estates, a quiet, tidy neighborhood ruled by the infamous HOA and its self-appointed queen, Karen Mitchell. I bought the small corner property mainly for the detached workshop, a place where I could build furniture, restore old cars, and maybe finally start the business I dreamed about for years. I'm a welder by trade, a craftsman by heart. My hands aren't soft, my words aren't fancy, but I've always believed in earning my peace through hard work. Karen, however, believed peace was something she controlled. She'd show up at my door for everything. Too much noise at 3 p.m., unsightly tools visible in my yard, even my dog barking at passing squirrels. Each knock felt like an attack on my right to breathe freely in my own home. Still, I tried to stay polite. I'd nod, apologize, and go back to work. I told myself she'd get tired eventually. She didn't. One Friday morning, I stepped out with my coffee and froze. There it was, Karen's pearl white SUV parked directly inside my workshop. She'd somehow rolled up the side door, driven in, and left it there. A sticky note fluttered on the windshield. Greater than HOA will be inspecting the neighborhood this weekend. Your garage mess was lowering the visual standard. You're welcome. I stood there in stunned silence. My heart pounded, but not from anger. At first, it was disbelief. Who does that? Who drives into another person's workshop without permission and calls it doing them a favor? I called her immediately, and she answered with that smug tone I'd come to despise. "Oh, don't overreact, Jason," she said. "It's only for a few days. I can't have your tools making the street look like a scrapyard during the inspection." That's when I realized something. She didn't see me as a neighbor. She saw me as a problem to be managed. So I decided to become her lesson. I gave her the courtesy of waiting till noon, just in case she changed her mind and moved it. She didn't. By evening, I rolled the heavy steel doors down, locked them in place, and began to weld. The hiss of the torch felt like justice. Each bead of molten metal sealed not just the door, but every ounce of frustration I'd swallowed since moving here. When I was done, I pulled out my phone, took a picture of the sealed door, and texted her. Greater than, "Your car is safe. I'll be out of town for a week. Enjoy the quiet." Then I packed a bag, loaded my old truck, and left for my brother's cabin 2 towns over. At first, it was bliss. I spent days fishing, reading, and sleeping without checking my phone. But by the third day, messages began flooding in. Angry calls, threats of lawsuits, even HOA board members calling me a vandal. I ignored them all. I figured Karen could stew in her own arrogance a while longer. When I finally returned a week later, the scene was something out of a sitcom. The workshop was surrounded by police cars, HOA members waving clipboards, and Karen herself, red-faced, furious, and clutching a tow company receipt. The steel seams were still perfectly intact, and the SUV inside had become a sauna in the summer heat. "Jason, you criminal! You welded my car inside!" she screamed as soon as I stepped out of the truck. I didn't even raise my voice. "You parked in my property without permission, Karen." "That's trespassing. I simply secured my property while I was away." Her jaw dropped. The officers exchanged looks. One of them even turned slightly, hiding a smirk. The HOA tried to press charges, but the police concluded there was no criminal intent. Karen had indeed trespassed, and I had simply secured my premises. The whole ordeal became the talk of Pineview Estates. People who had never spoken to me before suddenly waved when I passed by. Some whispered, "Good job," under their breath. Turns out, Karen's reign of control had rubbed more people the wrong way than I thought. The next HOA election, she was voted out, quietly, without fuss. Months later, she sold her house and left. I heard she moved to a different neighborhood, one without a workshop next door. As for me, I expanded my small business. The story of the welded workshop spread across town, bringing in curious customers and a fair bit of laughter. But more than that, it taught me something important. Sometimes standing up for yourself doesn't require shouting or fighting. It just takes a little bit of steel. Because respect isn't demanded through rules or HOA meetings. It's earned through boundaries. And when someone crosses those, you have every right to weld those doors shut, metaphorically or not. By the time the sun set that evening, I walked back into my workshop, now clean, peaceful, and wholly mine. The scent of metal still lingered in the air, and I smiled as I turned the lights on. Freedom, I realized, sounds a lot like a welder's torch sparking to life.